Facing a reduction in force? This video breaks down what you need to know from competitive areas and competitive levels to retention registers, bumping and retreating rights, your options for appeal, and alternatives to reduction in force. My goal is to help you understand what to expect during a RIF. Alright, let's get started and welcome back to the channel. Today we're tackling a topic that can be incredibly stressful and confusing for many employees, a reduction in force or a RIF. If your organization is facing downsizing or you're just curious about how these processes work, you're in the right place. We're going to break down the key components of a RIF so you can understand what to expect. But first, a quick disclaimer. This presentation is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be personal financial advice. There is inherent risk involved with financial decisions and investing. Please do your own research and make your own decision. Lastly, policies and procedures change. Be sure to check with your personnel department or human resources to ensure you have the latest information. So what exactly is a RIF? Simply put, a reduction in force is when an employer eliminates positions due to factors like lack of work, budget cuts, reorganization, or technology changes. It's not about individual performance. It's about the needs of the organization. And when a RIF occurs, there are a very specific set of rules and procedures that typically come into play, especially in large organizations or government agencies. Let's start with the concept of competitive area. Imagine your organization as a big pie. Competitive area defines the specific slice of that pie where employees compete for retention during a RIF. Think of it as a clearly defined organizational unit where employees are grouped for RIF purposes. This could be a specific department, a division, or even an entire agency, depending on the size and structure. For example, if you work for a large company, the competitive area for a RIF might be all employees in the marketing department at the Dallas office. Why is this important? Because you're only competing with others within your defined competitive area. Next up, we have the competitive level. Once we've defined the competitive area, we then look at the competitive level. This refers to positions that are similar enough in terms of duties, qualifications, and pay grade that an employee in one position could easily perform the duties of another without extensive training. So if you're a marketing specialist GS11, your competitive level might include all marketing specialists GS11 within your competitive area. This ensures a fair comparison when determining who stays and who goes. Now, how does the employer keep track of everyone in their standing? That's where the retention register comes in. Once competitive areas and levels are established, the employer compiles a retention register for each competitive level. Think of these as ordered lists of employees within the competitive level, ranked based on specific criteria. These registers are crucial because they determine the order in which employees are affected by the RIF. So, what are those specific criteria that determine your place on the retention register? This is where the retention standing comes from, and it's usually based on a combination of factors. While the exact weighting can vary slightly depending on the employer's policy or union agreements, common factors include type of appointment or tenure. Generally, permanent employees have higher retention standing than temporary or probationary employees. Within permanent employees, those with career tenure typically rank highest. Veteran preference. This is a significant factor, especially in government RIFs. Qualified veterans often receive a preference, meaning they are retained over non-veterans with the same or similar standing. Length of service or seniority. The longer you've been with an organization, the higher your seniority, and often the higher your retention standing. This is usually calculated based on your total creditable service. And lastly, performance rankings. While less common as the primary factor, recent performance ratings can sometimes be used as a tiebreaker or in some cases to differentiate between employees with otherwise identical standings. It's important to understand that these ranking factors are often applied in specific orders. For example, veteran preference might be applied first, then tenure, then seniority. Or how I have it displayed on this slide and on the previous slide, tenure or type of appointment can be considered first, then veteran preference. Bumping and retreating rights. Now, this is where RIFs can get really complex and where understanding your rights become critical. These rights allow employees who are targeted for RIF to potentially displace other employees in different positions. Bumping rights allows an employee to displace another employee in a lower graded position for which they are qualified, provided the employee being bumped has a lower retention standing. For example, if your GS-12 position is abolished, you might have the right to bump a GS-11 in a different department if you qualify for that GS-11 role and the GS-11 has lower retention standing than you. Retreating rights is similar to bumping, but it applies to a position the employee previously held, or one that is essentially identical to a position they previously held. If that position is now occupied by someone with lower retention standings. So if you're a GS-9 and you got promoted to a GS-11 and your GS-11 position is abolished, you might have the right to retreat to a GS-9 position if one is available and occupied by someone with lower retention standing. These rights are complex and often have specific limitations based on competitive area, competitive level, and on employee qualifications. They are designed to provide a safety net for employees with higher retention standing. If you're facing a RIF, I strongly encourage you to review your organization's specific RIF policies, consult with HR or a union representative, and seek legal advice if you believe your rights have been violated. If your position is affected by a RIF, you are entitled to notice. Employers are typically required to provide a specific amount of advance notice to employees whose positions are being eliminated or affected by a RIF. This notice period gives employees time to prepare, seek new employment, or explore their options. The length of the notice period can vary depending on the employee's policies, collective bargaining agreements, or applicable laws. During this notice period, you might also receive information about outplacement services, benefits, and unemployment compensation. Appeals. What if you believe there was an error in the RIF process, or that your rights were violated? This is where appeals come in. Employees typically have the right to appeal RIF actions if they believe the RIF procedures were not followed correctly, or if there was a procedural error that affects their retention standing. The specific appeal process will vary depending on your employer. For federal employees, this usually involves appealing to the Merit System Protection Board. It is crucial to understand the appeal deadlines and procedures if you plan to challenge your RIF action. Finally, it's worth noting that employers often explore alternatives to RIF before implementing a full-blown reduction in force. These can include voluntary separation incentives or VSIPs and early retirements, offering financial incentives for employees to voluntarily leave the organization, voluntary leave without pay, allowing employees to take unpaid leave for a period, hiring freezes, stopping all hiring to reduce the overall workforce through attrition, furloughs, mandatory unpaid leave for a set period, reassignments, moving employees to different positions within the organization that are not being eliminated. These alternatives aim to reduce the need for involuntary separation and minimize the impact on employees. Navigating a RIF can be incredibly challenging, but understanding these key concepts, competitive area, competitive level, retention register, bumping and retreating rights, notice, appeals, and alternatives, can empower you to better understand your situation and your options. I hope this overview has been helpful. If you have any questions or experience with RIFs, please share them in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more career insights, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode of my next upload. Thanks again for watching.